This episode is brought to you by the Arvada Center. The Arvada Center presents a revenge fantasy to sink your teeth into. Dracula, a feminist revenge fantasy, really runs September 27th through November 3rd. Fierce, feminist, and frightening, Dracula, a feminist revenge fantasy, really drives a stake through the heart of the patriarchy in this part horror, part humorous take. Tickets are available now at arvadacenter.org. That's arvadacenter.org. This episode is brought to you by Levitt Pavilion Denver. Levitt Pavilion Denver is a nonprofit concert venue offering free and ticketed all-ages concerts through October 5th. Concert season is far from over. Catch acts like War and Treaty, La Santa Cecilia, and Res Metal Night. Plus, don't miss Levitt's last ticketed show of the year because it is a big one. Blonde Redhead will be playing Under the Stars on October 4th with local opener Allison Lorenzen. RSVP for free shows, buy tickets, and find a full schedule at levittdenver.org. That's levittdenver.org.
Today on CityCast Denver, grocery stores across the metro area are increasingly putting pricey items under lock and key. But is the shoplifting epidemic just another case of election year hysteria? We're breaking down that news, the mysterious announcement from one of Denver's e-scooter operators, and all the other biggest stories of the week. Today is Friday, September 13th. I'm Paul Caroli, and here's what Denver's talking about. Welcome back to CityCast Denver, the show about another city with absolutely no evidence of new immigrants eating cats or dogs. Zero evidence. But a few years ago, we did slaughter a bunch of geese in the park to give to food banks.
Oh, I remember.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, dude. This is bad, Megan. It's to me, the shocking thing to me, so we have this goose overpopulation problem at some point with our Denver parks, and the response was to cull the geese, kill them, and then serve them to families through food banks. And
it was maybe the most uproar there was in the city.
But the uproar to me was the wrong problem. Like, I was less on the geese side and more on the why are we feeding humans meat from geese that have been eating cigarette butts?
Y'all can't see me, but my jaw is on the floor.
So I wouldn't want to eat that, would you? Well, Paul,
I mean, maybe. I don't know. I mean, I'm not eating any geese. I'm not eating fowl, really.
I mean, it's just like they eat what's in our parks, which is trash.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I mean,
so
everyone's got their own. This is why it broke everyone's brains, is because everyone's got their own opinion about eating a goose, or
it felt very Victorian era. Feed them the geese.
I'm like, would I eat that? I might take a bite.
I wouldn't.
If it ever happened again, I had this idea to ask local chefs what's the best way to prepare a park goose.
Waldorf
which I
salad.
thought was funny. Anyway, so this goose thing, it did come up as part of this. What I'm referencing is, the presidential debate, of course.
Yes.
Mr. Trump, he got very flustered, and he repeated this terrible rumor about people from Central and South America eating people's pets in Springfield, Ohio, which is apparently not true.
Also, just one of the oldest racist tropes in the book is that people from other places eat animals.
They're going to eat your dog.
About.
They're going to eat your freaking dog.
So racist.
But I couldn't help. I had to know everything about this rumor, so I Googled it, and there is a picture online of a man, a person of color, holding a goose in Springfield, Ohio. I saw this picture, and apparently it's all connected for these right-wing whack jobs.
Goose?
He's holding a goose by the feet.
So he wasn't eating a dog or a
I don't think it. There was no one eating a dog in anything I saw. From what I can tell, there's no evidence of that.
So
but as soon as I saw the picture of the goose, I remembered this moment in Denver, and I was like, "There's some gray area here. There's this. This is a conversation we could be having."
Oh, I don't know about that.
Not on that stage.
No.
The other night, though.
Colorado lore is it makes me so thankful to be a journalist here. There's so much to unpack.
It's the best. It's the best.
But it's
this
also
goose thing.
the double-edged sort of I have to know about this.
Right.
I have to know everything about this for my job. So please ask me. I'll tell you everything I know.
Anyway, it's Friday. We're here at the 5280 Magazine Studios. You've heard her voice. Our host, Bree Davies, is here. Hey, Bree.
Hi.
And we have a great guest today, one of our favorite regular guests. She's a neighborhoods reporter with the Denver Post. Welcome back to the show, Megan Ululani Boyanton.
Hey, y'all.
Megan, how's the fall treating you?
Good. It's starting to cool down, although I don't believe summer ends until September 22nd. I am a Leo,
Wow.
and so I refuse to let go of it until the very last minute.
I love you. Thank you. I just feel like the fall people are very pushy and they're like already in spooky season and they're not letting us have this time.
Halloween? Are you
Yes,
serious?
It's not time yet.
We have like 2 months, a month and a half?
Exactly.
Y'all need to calm down.
Thank you.
Controversial opinion, but...
No, I like it. I like the drama as usual. That's what I'm here for. But yeah, so let's get to our top story. Lots of drama here. This is a fun one. Also connected to politics. Definitely, people are, going nuts. Can't really think straight. It's the presidential election.
All rules are out the window. Everybody's thinking crazy. Every meme on Facebook has now infiltrated everybody's brains.
Yes.
Buckle up.
It's so bizarre.
So the issue here is the crime narrative. As usual, it's under dispute. Is crime going up? Is crime going down? Data shows here in Colorado, it's generally going down, but fears of a spike in, quote, organized retail crime have prompted some local retailers to take some curious new preventative measures. Megan, you reported on some changes at the Safeway in 5 Points, and I want to start there. Just
Sure.
can you describe what is happening at the Safeway?
Yeah, so I went and did some in-person reporting. The story idea kind of came to me actually from an editor's meeting where I think they were chatting about, it's so hard for me to, buy products at, I think, one of their local grocery stores. They're like, it feels like everything's behind, under lock and key. And I had heard that this particular Safeway was one that I should check out because it has the nickname The Unsafe Way.
Right.
Which I didn't know before reporting this story. So the more you know.
It's unfortunately, a long-running nickname for that story, yeah.
Yeah, and so I walked. This was kind of my first stop on my tour of about a dozen grocery stores. I've seen every nook and cranny of big major name brands.
We might have to get into that later. That sounds interesting. But yeah, what did you see?
So walked in. The big thing that kind of stuck out to me was they have an area, kind of like a store within a store. You go in and certain aisles, I think it's like aisles 2 and 3, have now been cordoned off into kind of like a box shape almost. There's like an emergency exit door in the back, but you can only enter through the front and go past these 2 separate checkout counters that are dedicated to this area alone. And I was, kind of trying to keep a list of the different products that they have, in this area. And it really, some of them, had made sense. I've done stories about, like laundry detergent thefts, kind of a year ago or so. And so those are in there. That made sense to me. But there were other things there that didn't make as much sense, like baby food, like diapers. The electric toothbrushes were in its own box in the cordoned off area, the store within a store. I didn't really understand that one quite as much. Candles, coloring books.
So if I want a candle at the Safeway, I have to go talk to somebody and they have to unlock it for me?
So you can go into this area and you can get it off the shelf, but you have to go and check out at this individual checkout counter, and they will give you a receipt, and then you can continue on the rest of your trip throughout the store. And you have to keep that receipt on you and pay for it in that area before you can continue.
So what is the anti-theft aspect of that? How is that supposed to stop me from stealing these coloring books?
I think that's a good
that
question.
I desperately have to have.
I'm assuming it's more highly surveilled in that area.
Yeah.
Like if
that
you
would
go
make
down
sense.
the makeup aisle, there's it lets you know you're being filmed. And then I would also assume it's maybe a tighter inventory. They're keeping tighter inventory numbers on that specific area based on what is being checked out at that register would be my guess.
And so there are 2 giant security cameras, like you said, with big screens showing you like your activity, but you also have to enter and exit kind of under the gaze of an employee who will then check you out for those particular items and give you a receipt.
Which feels so stressful to me as a former employee. I feel this way for these folks that they're the front lines of having to enforce something that the retailers have decided is, it's just an added part of your job that you have to do.
Which a little bit higher stress, added scrutiny.
Yeah,
Sounds uncomfortable for everyone.
Everybody, yeah. The customer's not having a good experience. The employee's having to enforce something. It feels weird, but yeah.
And that's Kim Cordova, who leads the UFCW Local 7, which is the union that represents grocery store workers in Colorado. I had reached out to her to kind of ask for that employee perspective because I also reached out to a lot of the major chains to get their perspective as employers as to why they're kind of putting these new anti-theft measures into effect. The union had said that while they think that these measures are, obviously to prevent theft. They think that they're kind of Band-Aid solutions to the larger issues, which is a shortage of employees and a shortage of security or a lack of security. And they think that those are the two broader issues that actually need to be addressed in order to solve this problem.
Bree, have you seen these new anti-theft measures going in?
I had one of the most terrible retail experiences I've ever had last week at a Ross in a similar situation where, everybody knows Ross is like kind of janky. Like you're in for an experience if you go there. It's like shopping at the DMV. Like that's the vibe in there. And they're like, okay, everybody who has 8 items or less, you can do self-checkout. And so I go over and it's just like a kind of a clusterfuck. And they have large I'm like checking out like dog beds and like pillows. It's like a lot of things. And there's like 8 registers and there isn't an employee. There isn't a clerk. There's a security guard. So she is tasked with checking everyone's receipt before you leave, taking off all of the security tags, double checking what's in your. It's the most like uncomfortable, not enjoyable experience I've ever had in retail. And I love retail. I worked retail for a long time, and it was the most recent experience of this that I've had. But this locking stuff behind that is just part of the grocery store experience now. Yeah, that Megan's describing.
Which is just like
hate it.
Brave new world, I guess.
I hate it.
I have not experienced this at all.
Really?
Not even. I
haven't really
noticed
at your grocery,
Paul? Not at my King's, not at the Safeway near us.
What part of town are you in?
Down in Southeast, Virginia Village, which is another interesting part of your article, because you were like, the places where the shoplifting crimes have been reported most are not the places where we're seeing these anti-theft measures necessarily.
In some cases, yeah. That's kind of what stuck out to me.
Yeah. Did you find any reasoning why? That was so weird to me.
The corporate spokespeople were extremely vague with me and wouldn't go into reasoning behind, certain Colorado locations. But that is kind of what was jarring to me, was kind of trying to track, okay, DPD gave me a list of the neighborhoods with the highest reports of incidents of larceny at grocery stores in particular. And they gave me the top 5, and Central Park was at the top. And so you would imagine that, okay, well, if I go to Central Park, that's probably going to be the place where I see the highest, level of anti-theft measures. And I went to a King Soopers there, and, there were a couple of, measures. There's like a big sign at the front of the store that says, hey, we don't allow these kinds of bags. But I felt that's pretty common nowadays. And you go in, and it kind of has a little gate at the front that you have to walk through, right? The automatic gate. And there's a security guard standing there. But other than that, it was a very normal kind of. Also, it was an upscale King Soopers, so it kind of almost felt like I was in a Whole Foods in a way.
This is in Central Park?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's that big new one that's kind of surrounded by a lot of like residential.
I've been to another one over there that is not nice, and that's different.
Really? Okay.
That's interesting.
So this one was, they had the laundry detergent kind of behind in a lockbox, and they had the makeup in a lockbox, but everything else was out in the open.
But this is a good point. The Central Park, the newer, fancier location. I have to say, this is not something that I see at a Whole Foods or in Cherry Creek. Right. I don't see any of that kind of locking things away. So I think there's a little bit of profiling on behalf of these corporations of what their customer base is, especially if it's not directly related to crime data specific to our city.
Let's talk about the owners and the operators, because I thought some of the comments you had from like the owner of Martzik's were pretty interesting. Like, why are they so up in arms about this? People are talking about shoplifting like it's an epidemic.
Yeah, I'm really glad that I got to talk to Pete Martzik, because he was really like, the only kind of grocery industry representative who was able to be like completely candid with me. And he owns kind of 2 local grocers. One is in Uptown, one's on Colfax. And he had said that for him as a small retailer, they deal with theft, but they actually more often deal with like nuisance issues and like vandalism and things like that. He thinks that things like the autonomous systems that they have, like the self-checkout, he thinks that's probably adding to the issue. Whereas at his stores, it's very kind of, there's a person-to-person interaction where somebody is handing you your stuff. People kind of, it's a small store, it's easier to keep an eye on people. He said that the issue isn't as big for him also because, he kind of deals in products where the high-end ones are already behind the counter. And when it comes to things like he sells kind of like specialty items, including like meat. So like his highest priced items, like a ribeye, are already going to be behind glass anyway. He says that it is an issue for broader, for larger retailers and that, the industry overall is kind of trying to figure out this problem. But he kind of ultimately concluded with, if somebody's going to steal from you, like they're going to steal from you. He says that in his experience, he went into a Consumers and watched a woman, run out with a cart. And so he's seen it happen. But he thinks that maybe sometimes these anti-theft measures, they're attempts at solving the problem, but in some cases they might be for naught.
I have so many thoughts on this as a former retail employee, but initially I think we're punishing the customers for maybe business problems that are not actually directly related to shoplifting, just loss of profits. I know there was this sort of hysteria. It was like some big chain, a Walgreens or a CVS, or maybe it was even Walmart, was like, we're closing these 5 stores because the shoplifting is so bad. And then it turned out like, no, they were just low performing stores. But something I want to talk about is the employee experience. And what I think has led to this issue actually is go all the way back to the Great Recession, 2007 through 2009. I worked retail during that time. It
Your
was
gap years.
My gap, yes.
Okay.
My literal gap years. But the economy sucked. It was a store pre-recession where there'd be 40 of us working on the floor, and then step into the recession, there's 2 of us working on the floor.
Wow.
And we were navigating different sales every day, would come down from corporate. T-shirts are 2 for $25. Tomorrow they're 3 for $30. Like they were trying to do all this weird math, but they started cutting back on employees because of that. But then the thing that happened at the same time was corporations started, at least in the retail world, stopped having full-time positions. They started cutting all these full-time positions and making everyone part-time because you didn't have to pay benefits. You didn't have to pay insurance. It costs you less money. So we started to lose the profession that is retail. A lot of folks I worked with in retail, it was their profession. They were professionals. They had been doing it for years. That expertise, it gets cut because they're no longer making enough money to make it a viable career. And I remember they intentionally kept us under 38 hours all the time. So that 38 hours a week. So we didn't hit those things that made it cost more money. So they're cutting back on the types of jobs that you can have in retail. So the expertise is gone. And then they cut back on just the general amount of employees they have on the floor. Self-checkout gets introduced. Amanda Mole had a great piece about the failed experiment known as self-checkout in The Atlantic, I think last year, that was just like, it was sold to stores as like, this is solve the problem. You spend $150,000 to put in 8 kiosks and you only need 1 employee to run them. We know this is not the case. We've all done a self-checkout. Everybody's waiting for the one checker to help them because their barcode didn't scan or their credit card didn't work. So at this time, corporations are just cutting back and cutting back and cutting back on labor. Pandemic hits. They start offering all these new things. Delivery, online ordering, curbside. Who's doing all that? The same 3 employees that are also supposed to be working on the floor. So I think one of the bigger issues is just corporations don't want to pay for labor, and they're seeing the byproduct of that. And who's getting punished? The customer and the employee. So I don't know. I just think it's a little deeper than like people are stealing.
And customers are very unhappy,
Yeah.
I will say, with
Yeah?
with these anti-theft measures. I mean, from my own newsroom to, at me trawling Reddit rather to not trolling. I'm not a Reddit troll.
That's my department actually.
That's Paul's
Thank you.
job.
I was trawling Reddit and saw that, on the Denver subreddit that, a lot of other people have noticed these measures and they're not exactly happy about it. I feel like the worst instance that I noticed with the most rather anti-theft measures is actually my local, I live near South Broadway, my local Walgreens. You go in and I am not kidding you when I say it feels like every aisle that is not a food aisle has at least one of these lock boxes. I saw there are toys like card games behind a lock box. I mean,
and then like how many employees are there to help you?
Right. I think, and there could be more behind closed doors, but I saw on the floor maybe like 3 or 4. And lock boxes galore. You would think I was at a lockbox store.
It's like every customer needs their own employee to help them if they want to actually shop in the store.
Is this the Walgreens next to the Mayan?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
It's like when I first came to Denver, I took a long walk and I ended up at that Walgreens and I was like, I love this place.
Everybody has a good
got
story.
everything I need.
Oh my God.
I went to see a movie. It was a great day.
And I did walk in though, and I saw, one of the windows of the Walgreens was shattered, though, and had been replaced, by plywood. So, I mean, Baker is the number 3 neighborhood with the highest amounts of larceny.
Really?
At stores. And so I was like, this is an instance where it feels like maybe the anti-theft measures align, but it does. I mean, I feel like it's impacting the customer experience, though.
Yeah.
Let's bring in some politics here, because this whole thing did have a political dimension. There was an interesting post on X this week in response to your story, Megan, from Yadira Caraveo, the Democratic congresswoman, first-term congresswoman, who's running for her second term up north in Colorado's newest congressional district. So she posted, rising crime. This is in response to your article. She says, rising crime is endangering Coloradans and hurting our quality of life. That's why last year I partnered up with former Representative Ken Buck and co-sponsored a bipartisan bill that would expand federal enforcement of criminal offenses related to organized retail crime, !
I just don't know where to start. I think this is actually absolutely not serving her constituency at all. If retail theft in the grocery store world tells us anything, it's that people are in dire straits. Like, we're not talking we're not talking about jewelry store robberies. We're talking about people stealing formula. Formula is really expensive. Diapers are really expensive. And this to me just felt like a statement that was like kind of more pro-policey, pro-security, and less actually about what quality of life is about, maybe for her constituents. That's how I took it.
Same for me. Sounded like a Republican to me.
Yeah.
She's running to the center right now. I think she's afraid. She's afraid of losing to Gabe Evans in the fall. And she's running to the center, and I think it's weird.
I do think it's weird, too, especially when you're elected on a different sort of platform.
Megan, what do you make of the political dimension of this story? How do you think it affects the conversation about retail crime?
I mean, this is an issue that impacts everybody. These anti-theft measures, whether you are an employee, whether you are an employer, or whether you are a customer. So I can understand maybe a politician trying to make a statement on it, but I would like to kind of know more as far as statistics go. I mean, it was difficult enough for me to get statistics from these, big name brands like Walmart, like Safeway. Albertsons didn't even respond to my request for comment about this issue. So I would like to know more about, what are the statistics in Colorado and nationwide about organized crime? Is it getting worse? Is it getting better? How is it impacting Denver in particular?
And just what are the numbers?
Well, we'll keep our eyes on this one. I'll be looking for stores with these like anti-theft measures. I'll be more aware of it now for sure. Listeners, if you've seen this stuff, if it's bothering you, if you've got thoughts on this, we want to hear them. Call in, let us know, send us a text or leave us a voicemail with your name and neighborhood. 720-500-5418. Again, that's 720-500-5418. We're going to take a quick break. Then we're going to come back and we're going to talk about the pandemonium in our streets.
CityCast Denver is brought to you by Life Surge, a one-day live and in-person experience coming to Denver on Saturday, September 21st. Life Surge is where local Christians gather to learn about growing their financial impact. This all-day event starts at 8:30 a.m. and will feature nationally renowned speakers, musicians, and business leaders like Tim Tebow, the two-time national football champion, Nick Vujicic, the world's #1 motivational speaker, Elizabeth Hasselbeck, TV personality and show host, pastor-author Craig Groeschel, and Marcus Lemonis, the star of CNBC's The Prophet. Music will be provided by the Grammy-nominated Christian worship collective Bethel Music. The Magnus Arena has known inspiration, but nothing like this. A Life Surge event is a must-see, and tickets are available exclusively at lifesurge.com/Denver. That's lifesurge.com/Denver.
This episode is brought to you by Pine Melon, because I want you to have the peace of mind that comes with knowing where your food actually comes from and the sense of satisfaction you'll get from supporting the local Colorado community. It's a grocery delivery service that works with local farmers, ranchers, and artisans, and it's super easy to use and super fast, like same-day delivery fast. When our newsletter editor Peyton Garcia needed Bruna's Brazilian cheese bread in a pinch, she made an order with Pine Melon and it was delivered right to her door. Her neighborhood game night snack tray was complete. If you need a specialty food item on the fly or just want to make sure you're able to get Colorado's local produce delivered right to your door for dinner, Pine Melon has got you covered. Plus, if you go to pinemelon.com today and use promo code CityCastDenver, you get $75 off your first delivery. Again, go to pinemelon.com and use promo code CityCastDenver and get $75 off your first order today.
All right, and we're back. We're talking scooters. With the threat of increased regulation looming, one of the 2 companies authorized to operate a fleet of e-scooters in Denver announced this week that they are, quote, exploring alternatives for our dockless bikes and scooters in Denver amid a company-wide cost-cutting effort. Bree, is this the beginning of the end for e-scooters in Denver?
That's a good question. I mean, we'll get into the data, but like ridership was up. I mean, I think it was from Lime said there was at the peak time this summer, their scooter fleet was getting an average of 30,000 miles per day out of use. That is a lot of people using scooters. I think the struggle here is what the struggle has been from the beginning. The city, a private company, dumps their thing in a city, and then the city is left to figure out how to deal with it. And we've not had good luck dealing with it, it sounds like.
Yeah.
I mean, I haven't a good experience on the street with it, so I imagine it's like who's responsible for the scooters? Is it the user? Is it the company? Is it the city? It's very murky.
It has continued to be a problem for 6 years.
Yeah.
Megan, how are you navigating that?
Yeah, I thought, so reading that article, I thought it was interesting because it said that the 2 cities where they've, continued kind of the dockless scooter operations were DC and here. And combined, that's where I spent the last 5 years in both cities.
Oh, yeah.
And so I know no other way with these scooters. This is my life. And actually, I love the scooters. This is how I get around.
Interesting.
I do. I know that it's a very controversial topic, and some people hate the scooters. In DC, I didn't have a car. So that was, the way that I got around the city and got to like appointments, if the subway was going to take too long. And I have noticed here too, that for people who, perhaps this is, one of their only transportation options if they can't afford a car, that this is, another reliable mode of transportation. I was covering an event in Sun Valley on Tuesday evening, and I was, heading home right around the time that, work lets out. And there were a ton of people on scooters heading into the neighborhood. So I can imagine that this is, I don't have the stats to back this up, but I'm sure that this is, a kind of a low cost way to get around a city that is largely car dependent.
Absolutely.
I think so too. I think that, like I said, I agree with you. It's like people want them. And I hear that too. Like, it's nice if you don't have a car. It's just easier. It's faster. It's on demand. I get it. I think the struggles that I really came to with them is from the accessibility standpoint, they can make traveling for folks in a wheelchair impossible. Like, there's one laying across the sidewalk. A person who uses a wheelchair can't get out, move it, and move along their way. That's been my only struggle. But I remember talking to Jill Okentori at the Denver Streets Partnership about that very thing. And she was like, this is why we just need to start having designated areas. Let's take a parking spot and turn it into a scooter parking area. And that feels like a quick solution that we could start implementing. But I also see where a private company can't make that decision for the city. So we're in this weird bind of like, what do we do with the dockless scooters?
Well, that seems to be what the change is about to me, like, because they're being very vague. So we don't really know what's happening. We have this like half sentence from the CEO of this company talking about future plans. Apparently the city of Denver doesn't even know what they're planning to do, which is just like, I mean...
it's just a complicated. I mean, you just see how you're trying to get bureaucracy to move at a certain rate, and then you have the private sector moving at its own. It's like
if this is going to be a key part of our transportation network, it should be regulated as such and
taken seriously.
Yeah. Anyway, but so they're going dockless, or they're ending the dockless program, which maybe means that they're going to be docked. So, like, if the scooters are docked, maybe they won't be in the way. Like, people won't leave them on the sidewalk anymore.
And I have noticed that at Union Station, they already have a couple of designated areas just for the scooters. So I'm wondering if that's perhaps what's going to happen, like, throughout the
maybe
throughout
just
the city. Maybe there'll be a little, I don't know, square where you can park your stuff on Broadway, and you just have to go there to rent it. Because I understand too. I mean, right? Like, I walk down the Cherry Creek Trail all the time, and it's like when you see a scooter in the water, you just have to roll your eyes and be like, how did this happen? Like, I don't want to see that either. But
I know how it happens.
I guess you're right.
Drunk guy. Someone who's mad.
Does seem like
Someone
drunk
just
guy
angry at the
activities.
scooters. Oh my God. I've got friends who've done that for sure. Just angry at resentful about these companies
I mean,
for taking over space in the public right of way. Just like, screw these companies. I totally get it. I feel that resentment sometimes too. What I'm interested is your personal experience though, as a scooter person.
Okay.
Like, I don't talk to a lot of people who are using scooters a lot. Where do you
anything.
leave a dockless scooter?
I guess wherever. I mean, not in Cherry Creek, but
I mean, you can if you want.
usually outside. Like, if like I'll leave it outside of the apartment building on the sidewalk, and I'll try to like scoot it out of the way. I'm not a person who's just gonna like knock it down and let it block passerby, or outside of a restaurant, somewhere. Try to do it out of the way on a sidewalk. But I do know that they just introduced to, I think like not just, probably, like a few months ago, a newer model of Lyft scooters to the city. So I can't imagine, and again, I don't know.
They'd be getting rid of it altogether.
But I can't imagine they'd be getting rid of it. Yeah, now they have this updated model where you can like put your phone in these little clasps and it'll charge it, so you can actually have like your map open.
Oh,
and
wow.
They're kind of they're a little
Pretty
bit
nifty.
like bulkier. Yeah.
Interesting.
I love them.
No, but that's a good point. They're doing some investment here, so maybe they're not pulling out altogether if they're doing some investment in their equipment.
Which is a fear. I mean, we heard about that. I think it was San Diego. They imposed some new regulations. They
And
did
then
some
they
like
just pulled out.
geofencing, and then the companies were just like, all right, forget it.
Yeah.
We're done. So, we've seen Councilman Chris Hines talk a lot about like maybe imposing some new regulations. That was a big topic over the summer.
I feel so bad that he's the face of this as council, because he's a person who uses a wheelchair who not only can't access these scooters, but these scooters actively make his area that he lives in inaccessible. And I thought that quote from him was a real bummer. I've heard some people call me the micro mobility killer, and I would say that's not me. I was like, who's saying that to somebody?
That's a wild thing to say.
I mean, that sounds like people. That
Yeah,
sounds
it
like
does.
some of the more like militant
Believe
bike
me,
advocates.
Yeah, we've had some things in the bike lane issues with like that thing in a bike lane. That's a person in a wheelchair, just so you know. But yes, I feel you, Paul. I feel like it has to. His area obviously is one of the higher use areas, Capitol Hill. But it's. I just feel like I would, if I was him, I'd feel alone on an island. Like, someone help me figure out how we do this, because people in Denver really like them. And they serve a purpose.
And it does kind of feel, do you guys feel like it's a generational thing with these scooters, the attitude towards them? Because I feel like Gen Z and millennials, for the most part, are the ones kind of using it. And that's broad strokes, because, I have friends who are actually still terrified to use them. But
yes, my mother, the air nurse, has scared me out of ever getting on one, just describing the injuries. But also, you can get hit by a car, in a car, same thing. But yeah, like the generational thing, I
guess I
never
could
thought
see
about
that. You see more young people on them. I don't see
Yeah.
a lot of old people using them.
And I feel like my parents are what, my mom's like late Gen X and my dad's a boomer. And I feel like they're very like, oh, these scooters whipping around the city. Like, I don't, in DC, they had an added, you could get a scooter or you could get a moped. They had mopeds that you could rent, which I feel is like,
So you could sit,
yeah, you could sit.
which
and
I
it does
think
come with
opens
a
it up
helmet.
to some people.
But which I think is also something that's keeping some people is they're
Yeah.
like, I want a helmet.
Yeah.
But I don't know where they'd put the storage on these scooters since they're so small.
Maybe at the dock, these new docks that they're talking about.
Yeah. The mopeds felt better equipped, but then it was like sometimes you would open the case to grab a helmet and somebody would have like, taken them or they would have fallen off or something. And you're just kind of like, oh, okay. So I feel like the stakes it was more equipped, but the stakes were higher because you're like on a road on like a vehicle that can go pretty fast.
I rode a scooter for the first time 3 weeks ago after
Tell me more.
resenting them for years and years. Yeah, it was so eye-opening because I had a lot of thoughts about it. It was faster than I thought, and it was more difficult to use than I thought. So like the thought of a moped, like someone getting on a moped who'd never ridden a moped before, like that's a little bit like I don't know if I'm cool with that as someone who uses sidewalks, who walks around. That makes me a little bit more afraid. The scooters were already tricky enough.
I know. It's like I've heard some horror stories from friends that like first time riding it, just like hitting the gas the wrong way instead of the brake, or like and then falling completely over the front of it. But it is a little bit intimidating if you've never done it before.
Did you get an adrenaline rush, Paul?
Just speeding down the Cherry Creek
Yeah.
Trail.
No, I mean, I told this story, but I made my wife go drive me to the scooter on the map so I could try it out. And then that one wasn't there. So then we found the other one. And then it started raining. So I ended up just scooting home in the rain. And I actually didn't share this part of the story, but, speaking to the where do you leave them part, I just parked it outside our house. And then the next morning, my wife got mad at me because I left it in the sidewalk. I didn't think about it.
What is that?
She was like, someone left a scooter on our sidewalk. And I was like, oh, yeah.
Gosh.
Yeah, I guess someone did that.
And I will say it's not without risk, though. I've probably done like hundreds of scooter rides, and I do have a scar on my chin from the exact situation that you just described, Bree, about doing hitting the gas and it flying out from under you and then landing right on my chin. So, but that's one out of a few hundred.
Totally. And I don't want to, yeah. The you can get injured in any way you're,
Absolutely.
Any type of transit, for sure.
Absolutely. Let's leave it there on scooters. Great topic. Let us know what you think. As always, the Pandemonium in Our Streets hotline is open at 720-500-5418. The number, again, you've heard me say it, 720-500-5418. We're going to take one more break and we'll be back with wins and fails.
Now, two pigeons bemoaning the fact you can stream DirecTV satellite-free.
These humans can stream all the top-rated national news channels on DirecTV, and now with no satellite dish.
This just in. Weather, sports, election coverage. DirecTV has it all, but something is missing. The satellite dish.
What are you doing?
I'm reporting the news. Back to you, Bob.
Here's some news. You're a buffoon.
Stream the top-rated national news channels. No satellite dish. Visit DirecTV.com. Internet required. Top-rated news based on 2023 Nielsen ratings.
This episode is brought to you by the Denver Botanic Gardens Maze Run. This year, explore their 7-acre corn maze at Chatfield Farms in Littleton, featuring a Colorado wildlife theme. The maze is open Fridays through Sundays from September 20th to October 27th. I've never done a corn maze. Are they scary? There's fun for all ages, with tricky twists, a mini maze for kids, and even an escape room. Plus, barrel train rides are included with children's tickets. I can do the corn maze then if it's not scary with my 3-year-old. Fall time for children. What's more fun than that? He'll love this. Indulge in some delicious fall treats like funnel cakes, corn dogs, freshly squeezed lemonade, kettle corn, and roasted nuts. Tickets must be purchased in advance by visiting botanicgardens.org. Remember, no tickets are available on site, so grab them now at botanicgardens.org.
Hey, we're back for the best way to end the week. Wins and fails, aka Rocky Mountain highs and lows. Each of us has brought a recent local something that we think is a win and another we think is a fail, and we're going to talk about them. And Bree's going to start with her fail.
My fail goes to two Denver-centric Instagram accounts this week that were both caught stealing work from another Denver Instagram account. So Denver Foodie and I'm from Denver, who has since blocked me. Thank you. You're welcome. They already started shit with me like 10 years ago, but that's another story.
Wait, what's that story?
Well, I'll tell it in a minute.
Okay, go ahead.
So Colfax Things makes great memes. And if you are on Instagram at all, you have meme pages you like. She doesn't collect memes and share them. She makes the memes. This is Ashley. We've had Colfax Things on the show before. She makes memes about Colorado and about Denver. And they're funny enough that people are stealing them, I guess. But it frustrated me because I'm from Denver and Denver Foodie both stole her memes this week. And Denver's not that big of a place, you guys. Like, why are we not just giving credit to each other for their work? And that's all she asked for was like, could you just credit me? And one of the accounts responded to her very nastily. She posted the private message.
What did they say?
Just like, you're not creative, whatever, sucker. Like, too bad. Sucks to be you. Just like so ego-driven and nasty.
Was this person like 16 years old?
I know, right? Like,
it's so immature.
But the thing that really bothered me is Colfax Things has 40,000 followers. She doesn't monetize her content, which if she wanted to, she could and she should. But she's made a point that she doesn't monetize her content. She does a lot of work pushing like charity events or nonprofits or local business specials. Like she's very interested in not only just making funny memes, but like sharing Colorado's, like who Colorado is. She promotes Colfax in many ways. And she's just like so supportive of Denver. And to have people stealing her work and not crediting her, just like, it's just such a bummer thing. It's such a loser thing to do. And I will say, whoever used to run the I'm from Denver account, on Facebook stole an entire article of mine from Westward, copy and pasted it, reposted it on their website, did not credit me, did not pay me, and did not ask me for it. And so I've had beef with them, and I think that they're continuing to do this same bad behavior of stealing from other local Denver people who are all just trying to do the same thing. We're all just talking about how great Denver is. So, like, give Ashley credit for her memes, you losers. That's my fail.
It's a funny meme, too. The meme in question. This is like, it's a picture of Anthony Bourdain at a little
It's her
hole
first
in
meme.
the wall. Really?
First meme ever.
Oh, it's a great meme. It's a little, and now I'm describing it. Anthony Bourdain in a little hole in the wall in Vietnam, like he's crouched down, he's eating like some noodles, and the text says, Denver transplants on their first time on federal.
Denverites on their first time on federal, I think.
Yeah, it's great. It's such a good observation. It's like perfect.
And all her stuff is just observational things about Denver that are funny. And it's so simple to just give her credit.
Oh, I love Colfax things.
Yeah, I love Colfax. I mean, yeah, go follow Colfax things and give her some love.
Megan, how about you? What's your fail this week?
Okay. My Denver fail of the week, it's a bit more personal, but
okay.
Okay. So in the Spear neighborhood, I don't know how to solve this problem of getting waste management to be quieter with like the dumpsters.
Oh.
Do you know
6 a.m.
if
This is a
anyone
thing.
knows,
It's like clanking.
yes, every morning or Monday and Friday, I guess, because it happens right outside. We're first floor, like, you know, have first floor windows, and
Brutal.
it happens right outside. That's my alarm clock.
It's like
Monday
broken
and
glass.
Friday.
And
Oh
like,
my! And you go outside, and it's just like there's like a trail of trash. Like I don't know. How do we make it stop?
I got bad news for you, Megan. I think it might be getting worse. They're talking about changing the noise ordinance to allow pickups from 5 to 6.
no. Oh, will that help them
Your
pick up?
face right now is like very. This is
Yeah,
very.
I'm
Ready
gonna
to
lead the
get
charge.
up earlier. No, that is...
The madness has to stop. My boyfriend and I are like at our wits' end with it. I mean, he's a morning person. I guess he's already up.
There's apartments
at
have
'em.
dumpsters still versus single family or residential has because we used to have dumpsters too, but I forgot they're still, and they're just so much louder, the dumpster situation, than the regular bin.
Could be very loud.
Ugh. Paul, what about you?
Sorry to hear that. My fail, I mentioned Tren de Aragua earlier. It's not really a funny situation what's happening in Aurora because it does seem like there is some people that are members of this gang. 8, I think, have been arrested before the hysteria started, but the hysteria hit a real fever pitch this week. I mean, former President Trump mentioned Aurora and this gang in the debate. The quote, I wrote down his quote. It's just like, this is classic hysteria. You look at Aurora in Colorado, they're taking over the towns, they're taking over buildings, they're going in violently. There are people that Harris and Biden led into the country, they're destroying our country, blah, blah, blah. It's all just BS. But the effect of it here in our city is that people are seeing this gang everywhere. There was an incident on Highway 36 last weekend where there was a shootout. Some person pulled over and just started open fire on a Colorado State patroller, and then you see online Do Better Denver, the anonymous,
one of the biggest pushers of this narrative.
100%. The fear-mongering Instagram account Do Better Denver, and then former mayoral candidate Robert Tretta posts on September 8th, a couple days after the shooting. I got $20 that the name hasn't been released yet because it's probably a Venezuelan gang member. It's taking way too long. Something is up. It's all this same like conspiratorial, like we're not being told the truth. Something is wrong. And it's just like,
I'm like, do you think our government has that kind of time to create this massive weird cover up? Like, you guys are insane. Also, didn't they release the gentleman's name?
They did.
Who shot?
Yes, and I wish I took Mr. Tretta's bet because it was not a Venezuelan gang member. It was a man who's been in Colorado his whole life. Born in California. His name's Victor Anthony de Santiago, not a gang member.
Yeah, and sorry to break this to some people, but guns have been a problem in Colorado long before Tren de Aragua showed up.
Yeah, that's the other thing is like crime happens. It's actually going down, as we've been talking about. There's not some conspiracy happening with this gang.
I feel like Aurora has been trying to, especially after, Aurora was mentioned during the presidential debate. Yesterday, the city, Mayor Kaufman and Councilwoman Jurinski actually put out a joint statement kind of trying to tamper the flames and say like, hey, let's not get out of hand.
Interesting,
here.
because Jurinsky was one that was spreading this information before.
Yeah, I mean, I would say those two are the most responsible for this situation, and maybe some of these Instagram accounts as well.
Yeah, maybe they're starting to realize what they've done. Hopefully. I don't know. God, that's insane.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm sure we're not done talking about it.
No, unfortunately not.
All right, let's talk about some good stuff. Some wins. I'll start. I've got two really good ones. Just a couple of milestones for great local businesses I love. Mile High Comics.
Oh, yeah.
The comic shop. Like, this is a real place for me when I first moved here. I just like loved biking over the north side of town to this giant warehouse. If you've never been to the Jason Street Megastore from Mile High Comics, I really highly recommend it. It's humongous, and it's full of comics. And I learned today from this great story in Westward that was about their 50th anniversary, 50th year in business, that the reason why this shop like succeeded is because they happened to be the biggest chain of comic book stores when a local comics collector passed away tragically, but had this like extremely valuable collection.
Oh, wow.
So they were able to
Wow.
buy this massive collection at like a little bit less than it was probably worth. And now they have this 50-year legacy. And it was just this like weird happy accident of, happening to like fall into this collection. And then they have this great shop. And anyway, that's a great one. And then the other anniversary is for Redeemer Pizza, not 50 years, 3 years. They're having a celebration on September 18th. Redeemer Pizza, I keep going back there in Rhino. It's my favorite slice counter in the city.
I have not been.
I haven't either.
I really love it. It's
have
a
to add it to my list.
great pizza
Yeah.
place. They're always in conversation for best in the city, and I agree. But the best part is they have this back area where it's very casual. You can just get a single slice of their top-notch pizza, either the Sicilian or the New York style. They're both great. It's pretty affordable. It's casual. It's a really nice pizza place. Congrats on 3 years and to 50 for Mile High Comics.
That's awesome. That's so cool. I heard the guy that owns Mile High Comics also has like a massive pottery collection in that building.
Oh,
too.
really?
Mhm.
I wouldn't be surprised. It's not
collector.
Yes, he is a true collector.
for sure. It's an interesting place.
Also, Mile High Comics just has done cool events in the past. Has been super supportive of the LGBTQ community. Just lovely business all around.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Megan, you want to give us your win?
Oh, sure. So I don't know if y'all have had time to visit one of the newest speakeasies in town. It's called Lincoln's.
Oh, I
where
want to go
everything's
so bad.
$5.
Yes, where everything is $5.
I love that. Even as a non-drinker,
The
that
heavens
price
open up.
point is lovely.
Yeah, I went actually, was it open like the not opening weekend, but the weekend after? I had some friends in town, and it's right by Union Station. It's in, I think it's what is it, the Ice House building?
Oh,
You
that's a
have
cool
to find
building.
it though. They won't tell you where it is, and so we're kind of like walking around the building and going inside to like try and find this speakeasy.
That's
But-
fun.
Yeah, that is fun.
Yeah, and so we did, and we found it, and yeah, everything. It's not, they're not doing like craft cocktails necessarily, but they'll do your standard mixed drinks, and they have to have food on the menu because of like our policies. So I think they have if I read it correctly, it was like a $5 chili or something. But yeah, I mean, just to be able to get a $5 drink in Denver, and much less
Downtown.
next to Union Station.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, this is.
I love this. I love this concept.
This is going to be a go-to.
Yeah.
And it's also, I guess it's a play off of the original Lincoln's, I believe, is in Maine. And
Oh.
then I think he expanded it, the owner expanded it to Vermont. And I guess if I read correctly from the article, he had visited Denver and was just like, I like the vibe here. This would be a good place
I
for
was
a
going to say,
third
we have a very,
outpost.
us in
Yeah.
Vermont, we got similar vibes.
There's a connection there.
Yeah.
So yeah, go to Lincoln's.
Oh, that's cool.
I might have to go
That
this
sounds
weekend.
and a fun place to take somebody who's visiting. Like, that's one of those cool things that, like, hey, check this out.
My friend's from San Francisco, so she was also like, $5. I was like, I know.
Yeah, you want to impress your friends from San Francisco or LA or New York? Take them somewhere where the drinks are affordable.
Bree, how about you? What's your win?
Continuing this trend of loving local businesses, I just wanted to give a shout out to Fashion Nation. They moved for a third
Great.
time. I think this will probably be their permanent home because they own the building this time, which is
that's
so
huge.
cool. They were for many of us growing up, they were on 13th and Pearl for 27 years, I think. And then they moved over to Southish Broadway. And now they are a little bit further down at 1745 South Broadway, just across from Corvus Coffee. And they have a brand new building. It's not just the shop. They have a little event space. And I get goosebumps. I love this family so much. The Italianos are a lovely family. It's a family-owned legacy business. It's been here for almost 40 years. The parents, Pam and Paul, started it. And they were like regulars at Rock Island, and it was like sort of, they were night stalkers at King Soopers, so they would work at night, and then they'd open the store during the day. And they were one of the first sellers of Doc Martens in the country. Before online or large companies would even sell Doc Martens. So they actually still have a direct connection to Doc Martens, and sometimes they'll do a special shoe series with them, and you can only get it at Fashion Nation. And then their daughters, Mia and Sydney, really took it to another level a couple years ago when they started doing TikToks about their store and their parents. And I just think it's this really cool legacy business that, like, it exemplifies something really beautiful about Denver's counterculture, that this family just has kept this going. I mean, this is if you ever loved a Hot Topic, you have to thank a Fashion Nation for existing, because they're the template for what a corporation decided to do. And I don't fault people for going there, because a lot of times it's the only access you had, but maybe go down to Fashion Nation and get that pair of Docs you've always wanted. I know a lot of folks that do, like my kid's first pair of Docs, it's a trend, or it's a tradition. You go to Fashion Nation and you get your pair of Docs. And they're just like, I don't know, they're also just like the nicest people. And it's just this like all-American goth punk family. They're so cool. And if you haven't been there, it's lovely. But I just wanted to give them a shout out, because they are an incredible, warm, welcoming, awesome place for weirdos. And go check it out. Go say hi to Pam and Paul and Sydney and Mia.
Who doesn't love that?
Ugh, love it. They're great.
Great wins all around. And great show. What a good one. What a fun one. Good week. Good week here on the podcast. Come join us again next week.
Yeah. Thanks, Paul.
Thanks for letting me come yap.
Yeah. See y'all next time. That's all for today here on CityCast Denver. Our producers this week were Olivia Jewel Love and me, Paul Caroli. Peyton Garcia writes our morning newsletter, Hey Denver. Bree Davies is our host. Our music is by Los Mocochetes, with additional mixing by Tyler Lindgren. If you haven't already, subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts, follow us on Instagram at CityCast Denver, and tell Danielle Jurinsky about us the next time you see her. You can sign up for that daily newsletter and learn more about us at denver.citycast.fm. See you next week. That they're I guess it's like an accessibility thing, or maybe the fact that they're changing this. Forget this. We've talked about scooters enough.